In 1854, did the United States need a railroad that traveled from east to west? The United States Congress debated this very question for 8 long years, beginning in 1854. Newly elected President Abraham Lincoln in 1860 thought it was a grand idea. He hoped a railroad would bind the country together again after the Civil War. The U.S. government promised to loan the funds and the land needed to build the tracks. 2 railroad companies were given the go-ahead by President Lincoln to begin building the tracks. The Central Pacific Railroad Company came from Sacramento, California. The Union Pacific Railroad was from Omaha, Nebraska. Construction began in 1863. The Central Pacific faced challenges early on, labor shortages and cold winters. Chinese immigrants were moving to California and were willing to work hard for the railroad. Did you know, by 1865, almost 80% of the workers for the Central Pacific were Chinese? The Civil War ended in 1865. Many ex-soldiers needed work, and the Union Pacific hired them. The Union Pacific hired only the strongest men to build their tracks. Their team was a mix of Irishmen, ex-soldiers from the North and South, Mexicans, ex-slaves, and ex-convicts. Did you know the Union Pacific was known to sing songs to pass the time? The Union Pacific endured challenges as well. They had to deal with the hot prairie sun and angry buffalo herds. One problem that both teams found was the Native American Indians resented the invasion that was happening to their hunting grounds and fought back. The race was well on its way. The government was offering financial rewards for each mile of track laid. The Central Pacific began running out of time due to the rugged mountain terrain. Did you know? Locomotives were actually colored in 1869. Not until the turn of the century did they go completely black. Trains bringing supplies for both companies often crashed or were derailed because the newly laid tracks shifted during the spring thaw. In March of 1869, it looked like the Central Pacific had made up for the lost time and was ahead of the Union Pacific. Interested investors were offering up prizes for the team that finished first as well. President Ulysses S. Grant chose Promontory Summit in Utah to be the place where the 2 trains would meet. The owner of the Central Pacific made a bet to the Union Pacific to see which team could lay 10 miles of track in one day. The bet was $10,000. On April 28, 1869, in only 12 hours, the Central Pacific had won the bet. Did you know the final spike was actually not made of gold? It was made of a mix of iron and steel. May 10, 1869, each team gathered at Promontory Point in celebration. Jupiter, the train from the east, and train number 119 from the west slowly approached each other. The men riding on the front of each engine clasped hands as they met where the tracks connected. Celebration, food and drinks were shared, a brass band played music, speeches were made, and a large American flag was hoisted. Excited telegraph operators all over the country clicked the news. The Great Pacific Railroad is completed. Did you know you can actually drive along the original Transcontinental path? Each company owner took a swing at driving in the final spike. They both missed. A worker in the audience finally drove the last spike. Finally, it was over. East met west right here in Utah. The real golden spikes were made only for commemorative purposes. One was made for each company's owner. Some positive impacts of the railroad were importing and trade was now easier for the whole nation. Transportation for people, goods, livestock, and mail became faster and safer. The mining industry in Utah began to boom because of the railroad. On May 10, 2006, at Promontory Point, 137 years after the original ceremony, Governor John Huntsman Jr. unveiled the design on the back of the Utah State Quarter, Crossroads of the West.